begin? See whether there's compliance. All right. Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
We're going to have much more on that coming up a little bit later in the show. Back now to what happened in the Senate today. Just 1 week after President Obama said he wanted to remake the courts and was in the process of remaking them, the Democrat majority overturned 200 years of precedent, changing the Senate rules in order to take away the Republicans' ability to block any of the president's judicial nominees. It doesn't right now apply to the Supreme Court, but some believe it will. Remember, when Democrats were in the minority just a few years ago, they were totally opposed to this, including then-Senator Barack Obama.
If the right of free and open debate is taken away from the minority party and the millions of Americans who ask us to be their voice, I fear that the already partisan atmosphere in Washington will be poisoned to the point where no one will be able to agree on anything.
This nuclear option is ultimately an example of the arrogance of power. It is a fundamental power grab.
For people to suggest that you can break the rules to change the rules is un-American.
The nuclear option, if successful, will turn the Senate into a body that could have its rules broken at any time by a majority of senators unhappy with any position taken by the minority. It begins with judicial nominations. Next will be executive appointments, and then legislation.
That doesn't serve anyone's best interest, and it certainly isn't what the patriots who founded this democracy had in mind.
I say to my friends on the Republican side, you may own the field right now, but you won't own it forever. And I pray God when the Democrats take back control, we don't make the kind of naked power grab you are doing.
Should have prayed harder. Jay Sekulow is Chief Legal Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. And Jay, I realize that this is a look over here, don't pay any attention to this thing, Obamacare. But this thing they've done over here is important and could change the face of our judiciary for years to come. Put it in context.
Well, it's huge for two reasons. Number one, you mentioned the fact that these judges now get through against 225 years of Senate precedent. As you mentioned, the then senators, now President and Vice President, opposed the attempt or even discussion of a nuclear option back in 2005.
By it. I mean, the indignance.
Yes. And here's the other thing, though. Realize the president right now, with the Obamacare rollout disaster, not just the website, the whole law just imploding, the regulatory process, the administrative regulatory process is going to be utilized by this White House in ways we've never imagined. Who approves and reviews those challenges to the administrative processes? The D.C. Court of Appeals, what's called the second most powerful court in the land. And the fact of the matter is this was a court stacking move. And the American people, are going to be paying the price for this because it really does change the entire way the Senate was designed since our founding. But look, it's good for the goose. It's going to be good for the gander. And this will come back. And I don't think it's going to come back. By the way, I think Supreme Court nominees aren't going to be off the table either. I don't think legislation's off the table. I think what Harry did today was use the nuclear option. And Megyn, when you use a nuclear weapon, there's mass destruction. And that's what's happened.
Barack Obama's gotten Elena Kagan on the U.S. Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor. Now, these are justices that clearly are on the left side of the ideological spectrum.
Right.
But they had to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Imagine who he's going to nominate if he doesn't think he has to get them past Republicans basically at all. I mean, who will we wind up with?
The president said he wants to remake the federal judiciary. And you can imagine the image in which that is going to be remade. Because when you look at Elena Kagan and Justice Sotomayor, I suspect they will look moderate compared to who some of these judicial nominees will be. And I do think that the Supreme Court is not going to be immune from this change in the rules. I think they're going to use it at the Supreme Court if they have to. And the Republicans better toughen up, too. And that means when they're back in power and when the Senate's controlled by Republicans, there was a Republican in the White House, and there will be. The fact of the matter is they need to play tough, too, because it's good for both. This is not a one-way ratchet here. This is serious on both sides.
Let's play the Chuck Grassley soundbite quickly. Listen here.
Yep.
If the Democrats are bent on changing the rules, then I say, go ahead. There are a lot more Scalias and Thomases out there that we'd love to put on the bench.
I mean, are they doing this at their own peril, Jay?
Oh, they are. I'd add Justice Alito to that as well. And I think the fact of the matter is, this was a very short-sighted move on behalf of the Democrats, who were outraged and incensed that this was even being discussed, let alone put into practice. They've changed the rule. They've dropped the nuclear option, and there's going to be nuclear fallout and nuclear waste. And I think the American people are going to realize it'll affect Obamacare, too, because, Megyn, again, the administrative process that's going to be utilized here to implement this is going to go right through this.
And
Absolutely.
who's going to be reviewing those challenges? Well, there's certainly hypocrisy on both sides. Republicans were all for it when they were considering it, but they never did it. Jay, thanks for being here.
All right. Thanks, Megyn.
Well, once upon a time, many Americans prided themselves